College instructors, please.
We do. We have Councillor Patrick Brosnan, who is away on holiday, and we have a substitution for Councillor Fiona Gaskell in his stead.
Do you have any declarations of interest, please? Okay. Can we confirm the minutes of the meeting of the planning committee held on the 29th of August 2024? Is everybody's happy?
Yeah. Okay, I'll ask you to sign the food days, okay? It is indeed.
Do we have any urgent items?
No, we don't, Chair.
Public questions in accordance with standing orders 22 or 23?
No, none have been received of those either, Chair.
Letter of objection.
So at the point in the agenda being sent out, we had received no letter of objection, and since that has been issued, I have received letters of objection, one of which was forwarded through to you, I believe, on Friday. It's a committee group, and also others I've received over the weekend and yesterday in connection to Land Road number 7 Delcroft Way. So obviously the one that was sent to you last week, I won't go through, but the ones that I've received since then, I've highlighted the salient points that I will draw to your attention, the relevant points.
So we are going to cover applications registered week ending the 25th of August, the 1st of September and the 8th of September. As we have some members of the public in attendance, I think we're going to kick off 7 Delcroft Way.
Yeah, so that's on page 13, and if the slide pack that I gave you, it's slide number 12. It starts with slide number 12.
So, are they aware of the process?
They are indeed, yes. So I spoke to Mr. Day last week and explained to him the process, that he has 3 minutes to address the committee.
Yeah.
After which, if he can go and take a seat back where he was before,
Okay.
the committee will deliberate, and then a recommendation will be formed.
Okay. And we are going to start off with your reading the.
So Mr. Day actually will come up and he will address the committee,
Yep.
following which I will then give my officer observations
Okay.
and possibly answer questions that have been raised by Mr. Day,
Okay.
after which then the committee can deliberate, discuss, share their views and opinions, and then a recommendation formed.
Okay. If you'd like to
Thank you.
take a seat.
I thought it might be helpful if I timed myself to make sure that I don't
Okay.
overrun.
Don't worry, we
Oh,
aren't
really?
overly strict.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We're not keen on you having like a 10-minute
I think I've got slightly less than 3 minutes worth of points.
Don't worry.
If I stumble a bit, then I might go slightly over. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. So my name is Peter Day. I'm a resident of the Warren. I live at number 1. I'm here this evening to speak, representing not just my own views, but the views of a number of other residents on the Warren as well. So in short, this planning application's been rejected before in 2008. An almost identical request was put in, and it was rejected by the council on 3 grounds. Number 1, that it represented an overdevelopment of the plot, given the size of the plot. Secondly, that it would have a detrimental relationship to the existing developments in the area. And thirdly, that it would lead to a loss of privacy, especially for the people living in number 5 Delcroft Way. We believe that all these reasons that were determined in 2008 still apply. And just to be absolutely clear, I mean, I think that the residents of the Warren are not opposed to a development on the plot, but the key issue here is really just the size of the house is extremely large for the size of the plot. So just to go into that in a little bit more detail, I've got four points that I'll make very briefly. Firstly, if any of you know the Warren, it really is quite a special road. The houses on the Warren are all set quite a long way back from the road, and they all follow a common forward line, and that creates a very spacious and open field to the road. And the proposal would break that precedent. The proposal is a house positioned very, very much closer to the road, so much so that the back of the proposed house is in line with the front of the houses on the Warren. That we are concerned would set a precedent and would mean that through time, future development on the road would start to creep forward towards the road, and we would lose that very special, very kind of spacious field that we have on the road at the moment. The second point that I'd like to make is just that because the house is so large and because it's positioned so close to the road, then it really encroaches well into the line of sight of the front windows of one of the Warren. And you know, this issue could be addressed if the house was just smaller and positioned further back from the front of the road. The third point to make, and I think you'll see this in some of the drawings, is that there really isn't sufficient off-road parking space for the development. That's a function of the fact that this property is very, very large on a small plot. And so because there's insufficient off-road parking, we feel that it's very likely that this would result in roads in the cars being parked on the street. We don't have that as an issue in the road at the moment, and that raises a couple of concerns for us. One is that the house is positioned right by the junction between Delcroft Way and the Warren. So if there's parking on the street outside the house, that's going to be very close to the junction. And secondly, it's a cul-de-sac and it's a very quiet road. Children play on that road at the moment, and we don't really want to introduce parked cars given the sort of safety concerns that we have. And then a final consideration, for what it's worth, the road surface in the Warren is terrible. I struggle to think of a worse road at the moment in terms of potholes, missing curbs, big cracks, and we're just concerned about the impact that a lot of heavy goods would have on the road. So that's everything I have to say. Just to summarise, we're not opposed to a development on the plot at all, but we just feel that this is a really, really large development given the size of the plot.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so just to add to what Mr. Day is saying there, so I received objection letters from two other residents in the Warren. So Mr. Day's pretty much sort of covered off what they had highlighted, but I picked out a few other bits and pieces that were different from what Mr. Day had sent to me in his letter of objection, which is that they sort of touched upon again that the forward building line and that actually this particular design would actually would create precedent and has prevented redevelopment from encroaching forward in the street on other occasions. Proposed development places the back of the new dwelling in line with the front, which Mr. Day had already touched upon. It's also mentioned here that the plot is simply too shallow for the size of dwelling and to be in keeping with the well-established precedent of the other houses within the Warren. There is a mention once again about in relation to sufficient parking on the front being of a usable size for the number of cars that the dwelling would require, and the possibility of manoeuvrability of the cars out of the site. That detrimental character to the street and set the dangerous precedent to other future rebuilds in the street. Comments that were picked up were also possibility of encroaching on the 45-degree visibility zone for number 1, the Warren, and the fact that currently nobody parks on the street in the Warren, that they're all able to park on their own frontages, and also mentioned once again about damage to the road surface. So I'm quite happy in a sense to actually respond in some respects in relation to some of these concerns. So the on-street parking or the the statement that there is insufficient parking isn't strictly true, because there are parking spaces clearly shown on the drawings that there is space for 4 cars. It is not a requirement of parking provision on a property that they are all able to manoeuvre on their own. That there is, as long as there is sufficient off-street parking, whether or not that's within a garage, parallel sort of parking or inline parking, as long as there's parking provision for a minimum of 3 cars, actually in this particular plot, but they have provided parking for 4. The road surface actually is not a planning consideration. It's a matter that would be taken up with highways, so that it wouldn't be a reason to say that an application or any building works would be refused. And also there was mention about there being insufficient amenity space. So actually for this size of dwelling, the amenity space required is 100 square metres, and they're actually providing 200. I just thought to sort of help clarify in response to sort of some of those questions. Policy covers off then some of those questions there. So, okay, my observations are that the proposal is for a new 4-bedroom detached property with basement on land currently forming part of 7 Delcroft Way. Despite being sited at the rear of number 7 Delcroft Way, the proposed new property is accessed and would form part of the street scene in the Warren. The neighbouring property number 1, the Warren, is a 6-bedroom rebuild, which is set back from the building line of this proposed new dwelling. The side elevation closest to number 1, the Warren, is set back from the main building line and has a lower hip ridge line to the main dwelling. There are no side overlooking windows to either side. The ridge height is 8.6 metres, with the property width 16 metres and depth of 13 metres. A number of dwellings in close proximity have either undergone replacement or been significantly redeveloped, including numbers 1 and 2, the Warren. There is ample parking, so ample amenity space provision for both the host dwelling and proposed new dwelling. Touched on by saying that there's 200 square metres. There is parking provision for 4 cars with a new dropped curb proposed, which is suitably placed away from the access into the road. And just highlighting again that it's not a requirement that vehicles can freely manoeuvre without another vehicle having to move out their way. 4 cypress trees are to be removed for agricultural reasons, with 1 apple, 2 western red cedar and 1 cypress tree to be removed due to the redevelopment. The design and access statement states that lost trees could be replaced as part of the landscaping, but there are no definitive details of species, quantity and location provided. Tree protection zones are to be implemented around key retained trees on the site. An ecology assessment was carried out with no notable outcomes to prevent redevelopment of the site. The site is not in the Hartland Conservation Area, and my recommendation at this point of when the agenda was created was no objection subject to loss of immunity to neighbouring properties. This is ESD 1 and 2 of the neighbourhood plan, and 69 and 70 of the district plan refers. So those were obviously created before objections were made available. There are no objections online, interestingly, so I've received them directly to me, but St Albans haven't actually shared them.
Okay, anybody got any questions or comments?
I've got a question,
Yes.
probably for you, Heather.
Yeah.
It was, whatever this was, 2008.
Yeah.
The original one, 5-bed one. It talks about loss of privacy there, in terms of why St Albans District Council. The other reasons don't really make much sense to me because they're policy numbers.
Yeah.
Would you expand on
Of
those?
course, yeah. So policy 69 is actually a general policy for design of buildings. So
Yeah.
it can actually be for extensions, rebuilds. They're basically using that to say that the design and style isn't in keeping.
Okay.
And policy 70 pretty much covers the same, but 70 is for rebuilds or for new builds as
Okay.
opposed to extensions. So yeah, basically 69 and 70 are the policies that you would use to add further weight as the reason why it was being refused.
And does it no longer lose a loss of privacy for number 5 Delcroft Way?
It is a smaller application. So this one is,
Height-wise, is it?
it's height wise, yeah. So I think in the little pack that I gave to you, it
see the one
shows,
that's refused.
yeah, see the one that was refused, which was a substantially larger application. Let me just see if I can find it actually on here. Yeah, so
That's it.
this one here is the one, and annoyingly it doesn't help. So it's actually in your pack, it's slide 19. So it is a much more substantial dwelling with a much higher ridge line and also width across the plot. So that's why I think at that point in time, it's also deeper. So they were expressing concerns to the neighbouring property for its depth.
Do I understand why they placed it so close to the road? Because otherwise they're left without a garden
Yeah,
at the rear. Feel very, very close to the road and set totally in front of the neighbouring property.
Yeah.
I think that's number one.
And actually, you said so. It does look like it. I haven't got the thing, but it's right on the road. Oh, there we go. It's right on the road. So, but there's parking in front of it.
so it's not right on the road.
No,
It
I
just
see
appears that
that,
it is in relation to the
other
one that
houses.
was. I think what kind of potentially may assist them with regards to the building line is that a precedent has been set from the extensions or the rear projection of number 7 Delcoft Way itself. So they have got in the pack, you can see that there is a,
That's quite
hi Jane. Yeah, so there is,
that's quite a big property, isn't it?
so it's quite a big property, and what probably will assist them is the fact, if I just show you here, you can see that they've got a very long projection. I think it was an extension of a swimming pool, I believe it
That's
is.
single story.
It is single story, but the building line has slightly been, a precedent has been slightly set
By
with
the
that
same
being
building.
by coming out. I mean, that is directly along the boundary almost, probably a metre or two, if that, between the boundary and its rear elevation.
Is it set even though it's a different address?
Yes, because of it's a structure is in that forward building line. Yes, it is single story, but the proposed application is an interim between number 1 the Warren and number 7 Delcoft Way.
And where it's positioned, where I was going, where it's positioned, why is that not a 45-degree issue? Because of the sketch that.
Because what they have done is, I think in the drawing that's just there, is that they have set the roof line above the garage back, which means that the 45 degree is not repeated. A 45-degree angle is taken from the first floor elevation as opposed to the ground floor elevation. So the 45-degree will be intruded at ground floor, but it's generally accepted that there's some form of boundary, hedging or fence line. So a 45-degree angle is taken at first floor level and not at ground.
I understand.
So, yeah, so they can do that in slightly. Yeah, so I
Dropped it back a little bit there, haven't they?
yes, so what the roof line above the garage slopes backwards, which
Yeah.
means that the 45-degree passes.
Yeah.
And it does actually on the drawings that the councillors have got, do show the 45-degree thing.
You got this?
Got this one.
So can I just go back to that point that Kirsty raised about proposal would be contrary to provisions of 69 and 70 in terms of the design?
Yes.
Is the design now in keeping with
The design, so when they object to something or they refuse something generally on design, it's a very loose term that can cover a multitude of things. That can be materials, it can be size, it can be density and things. So when they refer to design, they're basically saying it was just far too large. So what they've come back with this time is, when they use the wording, is an overdeveloped plot and an unacceptable form of land development, providing a detrimental relationship with existing dwellings. So basically saying it's too large.
Right.
So what they've come back with on this occasion is a much smaller scheme, which
Is it actually on a square footage basis? Is it much smaller? Do we not?
I sadly in 2008, the papers
Right.
weren't available online for me to look
Right.
back at in the same way that I've got available to
Yeah.
this. But when you look at the footprint, it is a much smaller property
Okay.
this time than it was last time.
It's 5 to 4 is not necessarily that big a drop, is it? It's just a little bit there. There's
No,
ground floor,
it's-
it's still be the same.
It depends upon the size of the rooms and size.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in terms of the
building in the back of the new development
Yeah.
impacting front of, Warren,
Yeah.
number one. Does that lead to a loss of amenity to?
Potentially, yes. It's very tricky unless you actually stand on site to be able to absolutely sort of guarantee that. An officer, a planning officer, will have a greater ability to understand that because they have the luxury of a site visit. Because we're taking it from drawings and pictures and
Google Maps.
things. So, you know, I've been able to find the, within the application pack, are photographs that they have used with the application to show properties in the surrounding area. And I was able to take this one off of Rightmove when the application or the house was sold. So this sort of helps to see the size of the space available to them. But yes, I mean, hence why before I had any of the objection stuff being, you know, available to me, I just say subject to no for me to know properties because I can't guarantee that that's not the case.
Number 4 on that picture is the current view of the side of low-level property, is that right?
So number 4, yes, so whatever it says in the thing, yes, a view from the Warren towards existing gated access to the application site. So that's taken from the Warren.
Yeah.
And it would be beyond that fence line that the application site is located.
Yeah, so that's gate at the moment is going into the back of their garden.
And this is
Yeah.
at the top, yeah?
That's what's in the plot, yeah.
They should buy some from number 9 or whatever number it is, and we'll just give them a bigger garden, move it back.
Just that already.
Or number 5.
Yeah.
Warren isn't in the conservation area, but Delcroft Way.
These are mine.
The houses on Delcroft Way are conservation for the majority ones.
But the Warren isn't, it's further out.
So some of the Warren, some of Delcroft Way are conservation because they're the original drivers properties.
The Warren goes down, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than up, yeah.
Where the Warren, there's the Warren there. So it's actually, so the Warren is almost kind of encapsulated around the edge of it that shows. So this is the Warren here. So it's this house here. That house there is the site.
Yeah. Delcroft Way. I'm surprised Delcroft Way isn't it?
So some of it is, it's the first couple of houses off the West Common Way are, but the rest of them aren't.
There's a similar one on Oakley, isn't there? I don't know if
That's the Warren.
was what, sorry? There's a similar property like this on Oakley, I don't know if it's process. Right.
Yeah, Oak Way is the conservation area.
This was removed in 2000.
It's a similar scheme. So number one is here.
Yeah.
This was substantial, this was refused, but it's substantially bigger.
Yes, of course. Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so that bit of garden that you've got in front of your house, can you give me an estimate of what is it, how big that is? It gives us a better proportion of the sort of like the loss of amenity in terms of the front of the house and the proposed build. Is it sort of like a 40-foot front?
Oh, gosh. Trying to think how I would consider that in terms of.
So I'm looking at this space here.
40 foot, would you say, Adrian, that's probably a,
Yeah, I would say 30 to 40.
yeah.
What, do you mean from the front to the hedge?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
so
From the
here,
house to the hedge, yeah, about
Yeah.
that, yeah.
yeah, so
That's it.
where the front of your house, and then obviously you can start now
Yeah.
there, and then you'll have this a 40-foot of building side of the building.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on undecided? You what? Undecided? Okay,
You're undecided, or you are.
decided, yes.
okay. You want to tell us how you're feeling?
I think we should refuse it because I think it's too far. Obviously, technical terminology in for me, but it's too far forward, and I think it's. I think if it was a bungalow, I don't think it'd be a problem, but I think it's just too big for where it's positioned.
Okay.
I think it's an overbuild.
Have any other contrary views or agree with that view?
I agree with that, in terms of the size of the development and the loss of amenity to a number one Warren.
Yeah, the mass of the development,
Still too big.
yeah. I think that's more than 40 feet at the front of this property, isn't it, at the front of number one?
Sorry, I don't really know how to fall down on 40.
I was struggling.
I would say it's from here to the brown door, at least, however many feet that looks as though, I don't think that
Yeah.
must be.
If I was to strike it,
I can probably, I mean, I can scale it if you want, you will have to bear with me.
Like
I'll
full
be-
car
I
length.
will be able to do it.
Whether that is.
But it helps you get as
There's 16, 17
from the
metres.
size of the sign.
I'll be able to tell you, bear me a second.
On a bit of a bend.
If you know the depth, you know the metrics of the plot build, you want to be able to tell because it's the depth of the house.
Yeah.
Car parking.
Yes,
It's quite a small plot, really.
More than the depth. This house was on, this house was on the market last year. Yeah, I don't know, did it sell?
It was on for 4.5 million, I think. It went off the market. I'm assuming it's.
it did sell because I've been able to get the information.
Okay.
Yeah.
sorry, for me, I don't believe it has sold.
Did it not sell?
No.
It was certainly on Rightmove because I was able to take the.
Oh, but the owners took it off the
Yeah,
market,
so
yeah.
they got-
And then they're now developing it a bit more.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not a planning consideration, is it? It's just.
Right, okay, I'll be able to scale it for you, bear me a second.
Oh, wow. Does anybody else have any?
It's difficult because it's, as Heather said, you know, you have got parking. There is a precedent set with swimming pool already there.
Yeah.
The road's an issue, but then that's not our problem because that's highways. It's just, it is a big house at the end of the garden.
So just precedent set. So for me, precedent set at single story level, at bungalow height.
Precedent can be set however you want it to appear, but the difficulty is that there is already something. If you're talking about a
That
building
close to
line,
the
a building
pavement,
line
yeah.
can be
Yeah.
anything as simple as a
Yeah,
garage.
it's already there.
There is a structure at that forward point, so, you know, it's tricky because you can in a sense use it to say precedent at 2-story level, but the fact is that the building line along the Warren starts at the point at which number
Number one
7
is.
Delcroft Way, their
Yeah,
extension that goes along, that is where the building line for that street. So although it's not the Warren, that is where the building line strictly starts within that street. So actually, it's about 20.5 metres from the point in which your front elevation is to the road is 20.6 or 20.65, basically. To scale it.
60.
It's more about 65. I mean, I suppose the thing about the development within Delcroft, 7 Delcroft Way is it's single story.
Yes.
It's not.
It's not a big house.
It's not a big house, it's an extension of a single story.
In terms of building line, which is where reference has been made,
Yeah.
strictly that starts.
This one.
But the building line of the Warren is
Yes,
then
it's-
impeded as a result.
Also changes, yes, changes, yeah.
Okay, so I'm getting the sense that people are unhappy with this development because it is
Still too big for the plot.
still too big for the plot and the impact on number one, the Warren.
Yeah.
I'd say that the Warren does have large frontage at the front of the property, so it is larger than, significantly larger than a lot of the other roads on
Next comment,
Yeah.
you know, some of the ones on Field Road only got a cat depth.
Yeah.
So.
I know. I've been canvassing around there and it took forever to walk around all those houses. So, I'll propose that we go for a rejection of this planning application, if everybody would like to put up their hands and agree with that. And does
Okay.
anybody want to abstain? Okay, so we
Okay.
have one extension.
Fine, I don't need to report that.
Okay,
So, okay, so ultimately, we've got recommend refusal, and I also picked up on your concerns in relation to the forward projection.
yes.
Forward projection, the size and bulk, loss of amenity to number one, the warrant. Anything else you would like me to add? Okay, all right. So ultimately today, those are the basis of our reasons for the refusal. That will be put together into a proper policy written format. And I'll respond to both yourself and also to the other concerned residents with what our recommendation will be. But I would actually, on the basis that I noticed today that still there were no objections on the District Council website, I think you might want to just make sure that they have received your objections at St Albans. Because
Definitely.
obviously, although we are a consultee, we aren't the planning authority, so they are the key people who sure have heard your concerns.
Thank you.
Okay.
Certainly, I'll make sure that I post those. And, you know, listening to your discussion today was really, really helpful. I mean, I should probably just remove the reference to the state of the road because,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
hearing it's not a relevant point.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that that's the case. So that's been
Yeah.
really useful as well.
Banville Wood's a lot worse.
Sorry?
Banville Wood on East Commons a lot worse.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the road has been interrupted and damaged by a lot of the building work. That's quite a new building, isn't it?
That's this gentleman's
That's
house.
the one, yeah.
I know, but what I'm saying is all these new builds on.
It is.
Uh,
No, it's
the
exactly
warrant,
right.
how
And I mean, there are some incredible potholes now with sort of,
I know,
you know.
and I'm sure all that building work has contributed to that.
Yeah, for sure. No question. Yeah,
Is the Warren a private road or is it adopted?
it's adopted road.
Yeah, okay, so I would raise your concerns with potholes, curbstones that have fallen with highways.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That's really helpful as well. Thanks ever so much
Okay,
for
right.
your consideration.
But also the parking as well.
Yeah, so actually, I mean, it's probably a little late in the
Mm.
day, things have already been sent to St Albans, but the concerns over being insufficient parking, it's not strictly correct.
Well, that's useful. So
Yeah.
we should strike that
So
remark as well.
If
Just
it
keep
is
it focused.
possible, I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world, but
Hmm.
in theory, there is, you know, many properties in Harpenden don't have free
No.
access for
No.
four cars to move on and off of a
Yeah.
drive, but they have sufficient space for the four cars to be on the plots.
On a technical point.
Yeah.
Can I just, forgive me if I'm
Yeah, no,
overstaying
that's
on
fine.
one, but when you look at the plan of those four cars as you're going to be given.
Yeah.
You have to open the door on any one of them. That are on that right, as they are drawn on the scale. The one on the right hand, the one's in the garage.
Yeah.
The other one is so close to the border, you literally couldn't open the door. And the one next door to it is so close to that one, you wouldn't be able to open the door. So, and the other one that parked on there is blocked by the other two cars. So I personally, I still think it's an issue.
Okay,
Because that is not a relevant and viable parking.
vision.
parking
So in
provision.
theory, they've shown that they can have four. They only need to actually provide 3 parking spaces off-site for a 4-bedroom property. Only needs to
And
have
that would
3.
include the garage as well.
Does include the
Yeah.
garage, yeah.
Okay.
So they could either include the garage and only actually have 2 on the frontage, but they have shown that it's possible to park 4. But in terms of parking standards, they're only required to have 3 for a 4-bedroom property.
Thank you. Very useful. Thanks ever so much. Thank you for your time this evening.
Okay, so thank you very much for
Believe you.
coming.
No, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. Good night.
thank you. Bye-bye now.
Good night.
Right, okay. Start from the beginning.
So on page 10 now. 5/23, 1702, 5/23, 1721, definite criteria for consideration by the committee. So we'll go to 5/23, 1735. Please, please have that.
Yes. Okay, the property is a detached property with 1 metre gap down the boundary of number 19. This property has logged supports of the application online. Proposal looks to extend the front elevation forward by 1 metre at ground floor level from the existing ground floor forward projection, and at first floor level by 3.5 metres over the footprint of the existing footprint and over the proposed extension to the side of number 19. The extension will create an additional bedroom, which will be 5 in total, and extend the ground floor study. Number 19 Long Buckers has extended forwards and sits further forward on the plot, with proposed extension sitting in line with this building line, therefore reducing any possible impact on them from the proposals. There appears to be 4 parking spaces on site. Other properties in the street have carried out extensions similar to this. Consider no objection. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so happy with just with no objection?
Yep. We move on to 2023-0893, which is
Planning permission has already been granted for an almost identical scheme earlier this year. Changes to this proposal from the approved scheme are an air source heat pumps added to the rear elevation, slightly larger rear single-storey element to the back of the utility room to accommodate plants, and the front elevation has regular hip roofs, not half hip as per the approved scheme. All other elements remain the same. Property is located on a large block with extremely good distance to the other properties in the area. And then I've stated here other relevant observations of the previously approved scheme. So the property is not in the conservation area, but sits very close to. And I have suggested that we have the same recommendation of last time with no objections, subject to no loss of meter number 33, Rothamsted Avenue, and no detrimental impact on the street scene. Policy ESD 1 and 2 of the neighbourhood plan and 69 and 70 of the district plan refers.
Any comments? Agree? No objection.
No objection.
Actually, I just let Nick in. Okay.
Any concerns? Or everybody happy with it?
No,
Yeah.
it's fine.
That's done.
Okay, lovely.
So we move on to, we can't, the application does not meet the criteria, it's 5/2023/17, as is 1749, 1775. We move to 5/2023/1778, which is 117 Pickford Hill, please.
The proposal is to split the existing dwelling into 2 properties, 1 3-bedroom and 1 2-bedroom property. The existing dwelling has 5 bedrooms with 3 reception rooms at the ground floor, along with a conservatory. Essentially, only internal alterations are being made, with no extensions proposed to achieve the 2 properties. There is a large hard standing drive which can accommodate 4 cars, which will be split for each plot. The existing front door will remain for access to plot 1, and a side entrance door is to be added for plot 2. Proposal will actually assist with creating smaller properties in the town. Consider no objection.
What do you see that, is it?
Yeah, it seems a good thing, isn't it? That would be smaller
So the
properties.
back bed, yeah.
That's that.
Yes, I mean, it's a, looks like 2 houses.
Probably was, it's a-
Yeah.
Everybody happy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big. Good. Move on to 5/2023/1786, which is 64 Waverley Road, please, Heather.
Okay, the proposal, the property is the right-hand side of a pair of semi-detached properties and is sited on the end of the road with the access road to Westway to the side. The proposal looks to extend rearwards by almost 2 metres across the full width of the rear to expand the ground floor living accommodation, an extension at first floor level above the existing ground floor side extension to expand a bedroom and add another to total floor. There's parking of 3 cars on the frontage. The proposal is well balanced. Neighbouring property has a ground floor rear extension, which will reduce the possible impact from the ground floor rear extension. Consider no objection. Yeah. Yeah.
5/2023, 1791, and 1540 don't meet criteria. Oh, well, no, with the statement part, that were the applicants, so they don't consider it. So we'll move on to 5/2023, 1717 to Teens and Lane, please, Helen.
Okay, the property is detached and sides on to the garden number 1 Atkins Close. Proposal looks to introduce a ground floor side extension along the boundary of number 4 Townsend Lane, which is set back by 1.4 metres from the front building line. A 2-storey rear extension is also proposed, which projects 3.3 metres at the furthest point. The roof ridge height is also to be increased by approximately 2 metres to accommodate a bedroom, which would be 5 in total, with an ensuite and a study. Townsend Lane slopes upwards, therefore number 4 is set higher up and Atkins Close is set lower down. Objections have been lodged online over the possible impact on properties in Atkins Close. The scale and bulk are significantly increasing from the existing dwelling, with the ridge height appearing to be higher than the neighbouring property, which is set higher. The site is in the conservation area, and I've said consider recommend refusal. Proposed extensions and increase in ridge height leads to a bulky and overly dominant appearance, which could cause a loss of amenity to neighbouring properties, especially those sited in Atkins Close. Policy ES22 as a neighbourhood plan, and 69, 72 and 85 of the district plan refers. So I think within your pack, actually, I've included the existing and the proposed. And the proposed, you can see there's an outline of the existing ridge height of the property, and how much it is increasing by quite a distance. So yeah, and there is actually online,
And it's going uphill as well.
it's going up the hill, yeah. So the objection that was online from number 1 Atkins Close, forgive my cute, I'm a little bit large. Didn't intend for it to be 8 feet, I'm not quite that blind. Anyway, so yes, they expressed their concerns over the fact that they do sit lower down in the hill, the number 2. And
Atkins is behind them, is it?
So Atkins is to the side of them, so they are the first house
To the right.
It's you're walking up and you go past the garage, don't you?
you do, and then you
And
come
then-
to, and then you get close.
Atkins Close.
And then you get the first house in Townsend Lane on the right-hand side. So,
And
so where they're sort of, they're fronting on like that, Atkins Close comes on at the side, so the back garden of
So the
Atkins
side of
Close.
that house will be overshadowing one Atkins.
Correct, yes.
So it's
Yeah.
there. And it's not, and actually I think it's quite a wide garden. It's not a very deep garden, so it really will overshadow
Yeah.
a lot.
I think I did. So actually,
That
this,
area.
although this is a,
Right.
enlarged impression, you can see how close the house is in Atkins Close to the
Yeah.
right.
They have
So-
got big gardens in that place.
And, well, I mean, this one here actually doesn't really do it much of a favour. So this is the artist's impression at the rear. So the property to the right is the one at number 4, or
Yeah.
actually no, number 6, sorry.
Which is further up.
Which is further up the hill,
Yeah.
and that's even lower
Yeah.
than this one.
That's
So
huge.
it just.
Have they done a mistake there?
Don't think so.
Because that is like.
Yeah.
Just
If I come back to this one, I mean, it's probably quite hard to see, but, yes.
No, you can see the
So
original
can you
house
see the
underneath it.
original,
Yes,
so on the
yes,
left,
yes.
you've got sort of, there's the chimney line.
Yeah.
That is the original ridge
So it's
line,
higher than the
Goes
chimney.
through the windows.
and it goes way up.
Mm.
So, yeah,
That is
it's,
a
I mean, I
monster.
suppose along Townsend Lane, there are a lot of large houses that have been developed over
yeah.
the last few years,
Yeah.
really.
What's about crown roof on that?
I suppose, well, if they put a crown roof on it, they're not going to have a crown roof, you need to have quite a deep property to enable you to achieve what you're wanting to do. If you put a crown roof on that, then actually you're going to end up with not having the head space or the roof, the head height you need to have to be able to stand up. Yeah, so a crown is where it goes up and then like that.
It goes in a bit and then
Yeah,
it
so
goes, yeah.
you
Have a
generally,
short flat, a thin flat
generally,
bit, yeah.
yeah, you generally see crown roofs on houses that are much squarer as opposed to something that's more narrow, like we've got here. So, yeah, for them to, what they've done is, I suppose, in a sense, is that they've lifted the ridge height to enable, they've got the roof, the head height in the bedrooms up there. So maybe what they should have done is dormers.
And also the really big builds they've been doing a bit further up on Townsend Lane. aren't
They are, yeah, and they're further
Some
up.
quite nice older houses, aren't there?
Yeah, there are.
There's
going
more, I think there's more plot space around them. The further up
Yeah.
you go, you're
They've got
getting
big
into, they've got
gardens.
larger plot space.
Yeah.
And they are already large properties, so it's a large property next to an already large property.
Yes.
What we've got here is a less large property overshadowing a much more modest property in Atkins Close.
Have we had an objection from the applicants?
Yes,
Oh, that's
Yeah,
what that was.
yeah, so he's number one at this place, and it's his garden, so it's going to be overshadowed, so yeah, he states that there is about a 2 metre difference in height. From,
Yeah, it's massive, isn't it?
You just creating that picture, you look at it and go, it's a bit close.
Yeah.
And actually, so this sort of like the sort of like character of the road. It will stand out.
So Heather's is recommending refusal on the ridge height into bulking overly dominant areas.
Yeah.
Which would cause a loss of amenity to neighbouring properties, especially those sited on Atkins Close. Are we happy with that?
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Is there anything to that we would want to add? Suggesting anything?
yeah,
That's-
I'm more
say
than happy
fine.
to have it amended.
And basically do a rebuild, but make it smaller.
Well, we can't start suggesting.
No, I know, but it's, I mean, I think, I know the little house, I've walked past it before and I think it is pretty old. Certainly, but, yeah.
Okay.
So we happy with that? We don't want to add any further strength to it?
No.
No, that's good.
Okay.
Right, so 5/2023, 1673. 1653 don't meet consideration of the committee, so we now move to 5/2023, 1827, 67 Station Road.
Okay, property is a characterful dwelling which is currently in need of modernisation and improvement. Proposals are to increase the footprint and bulk quite dramatically. Ground floor, it is proposed to demolish the small side element to the side of number 2 Lyndhurst Drive and to demolish the sloping element on the opposite elevation that holds the single garage. Propose the garage to be integral with the main proposal and extend the rears by approximately 1.5 metres beyond the projection of the existing kitchen element, after extending the full width of the property with a small further projection from the dining room. At first floor, it is proposed to reconfigure the existing rooms and build over the footprint of the new ground floor footprint to add 2 further bedrooms, 2 en-suites and a study. Number 65 Station Road extends much further rearwards than the existing building, with the proposed footprint looking to fall in line with this. Number 2 Lyndhurst Drive is set on an angle to the plot and is a good distance away. The application details 4 off-street parking spaces. There are no tree works proposed. Property is in the conservation area but is not locally listed. Proposal appears to be in keeping with the host dwelling and other properties in the vicinity. Consider no objections, subject to appropriate design and use materials in the conservation area. ESD 2, the neighbourhood plan, and 69, 72 and 85 the district plan with that.
Any comments? Or questions?
Actually, you can see there, the picture up there, so the property to the right, which is the one that in a sense is going to impact on more, goes back almost double the depth of the Station Road. This has just sold on Rightmove and it is a shell basically inside. It's
anybody been living in it?
not decently.
I think there was a very
I
old
think
man,
it's
there was a car that was covered up for about
Yeah, there
10
was.
years.
Yeah.
And then it got cleared out. It's been cleared out bit by bit over the last 5-6 months.
Okay. I mean, this is a lovely house, is it?
It is, but it's not,
It needs.
I wouldn't say that it's fit for modern living.
Human habitation.
Yeah.
I think the new property, I think.
So I mean, so what they're proposing, so that's what they're
Yeah.
suggesting will go in its place, or not in its place, but that's what it's
Are
going
they
to look
going to
like.
knock it down if they?
No,
No,
they're
they're going
building
to
it.
build in round it.
I think it's quite sympathetically designed.
I think it's lovely.
Yeah, I mean, you're supposed to.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful.
So yeah, so when you sort of see the original,
Mm.
then what they're looking to potentially do isn't a massive difference. Really. It's not like,
But it is in the conservation area, so they'd have to.
yeah,
Is everybody happy with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not the right move.
There was.
yeah.
It wasn't like, it was quite a good price, but then ultimately what you have to do is.
They sink a lot of money into
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's just interesting.
What roof is that on next week?
Yeah, so that is a crown roof.
That is a crown roof.
I've never found.
Yeah,
Oh,
That's-
the one.
so that is a crown roof, Jane, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's a sunken one, but you can actually get them coming up and just.
Flat.
Like a flat roof.
Yeah.
And it just enables you to have that more height internally, so you end up with something like this.
But you don't have any loft space necessarily.
No.
That must be a nightmare though for rain and leaks if you have a sunk one
Yeah.
like that though.
Well, that one, yeah, I'm suggesting something like that, but the new type of roofs that you can have with like, you can get the carbon fibre ones where they come and they literally pour it and it's to your roof, so
And then that's
it won't leak.
Okay, so just to confirm, we're happy with that? Yeah, great. Right. So we're going to move to 2023 1071 and off Ork Close.
Okay, so this application is essentially a replica of that which was refused by the local planning authority in 2021 and dismissed at appeal in 2022. There have been no changes to planning policy since that time to deem this application acceptable development of a metropolitan greenbelt site with no very special circumstances demonstrated. So I've said consider record of refusal as this proposal is considered to be inappropriate development on a greenbelt site. Proposal therefore fails to meet policies SS1, ESD 8 and 18 of the local plan and policy 1 of the St Albans local district plan affairs.
where is it?
So down pretty much almost at the end of Westfield Road before you reach
yes.
Berwick Road. So you've got the Red Cow pub and just
Yeah.
beyond that is a relatively recent development, probably within the last
Yes.
6
It used to be like a
years.
scrapyard or
So
something.
yeah,
It
so
goes
it's
round
behind with
the-
builders, yeah, so it's literally just beyond that, just as you, I think as you go over the bridge, I think it is, where the Wrigley goes underneath it. It's a plot that's just along
So
there,
wouldn't that be a flooding issue?
possibly.
Because just thinking of
Yeah.
that, because they keep trying to build all along there and they're actually all fields that absorb the
Yeah,
water.
possibly, but that, aside from it being a flooding issue,
Yeah.
it's just actually, it's Metropolitan Greenbelt and it's inappropriate.
There's a ball close in the local draw.
Yeah, so I think that there is an extension to the bulk close on the bulk close side, I believe, yeah, not this particular side, yeah.
And how big is that?
But I
It doesn't matter.
I can't read that, I can't remember, so there's, yeah.
Very well pieced.
Yeah, so there is actually scope, so where bulk close is at the moment, there is scope to continue on behind it into sort of farmland.
Right. Okay.
Uh,
Anybody have any comments?
Yeah.
It's so recent and nothing has changed, I mean, not even district council's policy on buildings. Yeah.
They're just filled with water if we get a lot of rain.
It went to appeal as well, so this is Secretary of State also saying no.
Okay. Everybody happy to go with the officer's recommendation? Right, so we move on from 5/2023, 1808 and 1821, which well, one doesn't meet the criteria and the other one is outside of the Harpenden town boundary. As does 1824. And we move to 1831. Fibre Bridge Close, please.
Okay, proposal at ground floor level looks to demolish the garage and construct a wraparound extension along the sides and across the rear, extending 4 metres to half the width and 3 metres to the remaining half on the side with number 7 Bridge Close. At first floor level, it's proposed to extend the 2 front bedrooms, enlarge the bedroom 3 and reconfigure the staircase partially across the ground floor extension. Loft accommodation is also proposed to relocate the 4th bedroom with an ensuite. The ridge height is not increasing. Relux windows to the front and rear and a flat roof dormer to the rear are proposed. Number 3, Riverford Close is set further back than the application property and has a single-storey garage to the side, which will reduce the potential impact on them from the proposed side extension, which also has a 1 metre gap to the boundary line. There are 2 off-street parking spaces shown on the drawings, not conservation area and no tree works. Consider no objections subject to no loss of immunity to the neighbouring properties, BST2 of the native plan and 72 of the district plan effects. No objection. So I mean, that picture there sort of helps
Yeah.
for you to see that there is.
The white garage is quite high as well in comparison.
Yeah.
So now we move to 5/2023/17/40, which is the rear of 10 and 12 Station Road.
Okay, proposal is for a detached building with commercial class E use at ground floor, which will be 2 offices and in the roof space, which is 1 large office. Location of the property is on an area of open parking / yard to the rear of shops in Station Road / Lower High Street. The building is of a simple design and will fit in well with the other structures in this area. Due to the 2-storey height of the main buildings on Station Road, Lower High Street and Bourne Road, it will not be visible. 1 allocated parking space is being provided. The applicant states that the development site is currently being used for unauthorised parking by the shop / residents above the retail units in the vicinity. Therefore, despite there being potential for parking displacement due to the development, parking rights to this area do not appear to exist. The area is in the conservation area and the shops in Station Road near to the site are locally listed. Consider an objection subject to the appropriate design and use of materials in the conservation area. Is D2 of the native plan, 69, 72, 85 of the district plan effects.
I see cars coming in and out there all the time. I don't
Yeah.
think it's a parking.
Yeah.
Well, it is obviously parking, but.
Yeah.
I think that there's very defined areas of authorised parking or allocated parking for certain units. And I believe that where this is proposed, people have been parking for many years that don't actually have rights to do it.
So who owns that land?
So Bob Kamek, who is Harpenden, I think he's Harpenden Properties or Southdown Properties, I think so. That's, he owns most of Harpenden Town Centre.
So is the property going to be where the Red Cross is
Yes,
at the end?
yes.
And what's that long black one that's kind of,
So that is a garage block, I believe.
right?
That's not, because that would be.
Oh, actually, no, it's not. If you look, you can just about see it's that structure on the right, which has got the steps that go up. So I think there must be some form of an office unit or something.
That's
at the back
that there.
Yeah.
Wordson, that's the use.
Is there any allocation for parking for those offices?
Yes, so there's one allocated space has been provided as part of the scheme.
1 per unit.
So one across the whole site, but due to its location being in the town centre with parking like Bowers Way, East and West, a matter of a tiny short walk, they don't actually have to provide any parking provision at all. But they are providing. So that's not part, so I think there's 3 parking spaces.
And that's the unit.
Yeah.
I suppose it's not really relevant. But if they were to put in a planning application for commercial use and then go for change of use to residential, that wouldn't, I mean, we have to take it on face value as what is being suggested, don't we?
Yeah, so essentially what they are suggesting, is definitely offices. So it's, we can't guess what the future might potentially be.
But then you could say that for all the shops anyway.
You could say, I suppose, for anything. I mean, we get a number of applications where there's a supposed annex that grandma's going to live in, that actually you might find can easily go onto the open market and have be a rentable space, but because of their deeming it part of the host dwelling, it's not under council tax or anything like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we can only go on what they are suggesting on the basis of who this is that's applying. This is a retail unit. This is the nature of his business.
But if they were to come back and do a change of use to a residential, it wouldn't come before us, would it?
I don't know, actually. I'm not sure that it would, because of under the new regulations, you can just change them. You can just.
Well, they would have
Yeah.
to apply to St Albans district.
No, they wouldn't. I think it can just happen. Under the class use regulations that changed a few years ago, you can change commercial class use into residential without having to apply for planning permission.
You have to prove that it doesn't work for certain time, you just do it.
I think you can just do it. I mean, I can give it greater research, but
But it doesn't make
Yeah.
any difference because we have to consider what's in
Well, it's in front of us, exactly.
Yeah.
So we can't, so
Yeah.
it's in the realms of speculation. Watch this space.
yes. Yes, it does say the proposed building would have one on-site parking space.
Is that there, is that for, not for?
That there is Station Road. That there is the Lower High Street, and
Oh, I
that there
see.
is Vaughan Road.
Oh, I see, oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, then. Any comments, everybody happy with it?
Yeah.
We haven't got a crystal ball. I think it's-
So just behind the white cars, one roads, yeah?
Sort of to the right.
Because that's for sale as well, isn't it? The little bit behind the white car. That little garage.
What's the Vaughan Road?
Mm,
Oh, I don't know.
no.
That's at the side of Christchurch, isn't it?
Yeah. It's been on the market for a while.
Okay.
Make an excellent garden.
Okay, everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Right, so we move on. 5/23, 1796 and 1798 meet the criteria, neither can 1645. So we move to 1704, which is 1 Low Street. Please, Heather.
Okay, the HSBC cash service branch occupying this site and the larger unit to the left closed in July 2023 was currently vacant. HSBC hold the freehold to both units. This proposal is to carry out internal alterations to split the two units, with the smaller unit being utilised as a community cash pod, with the larger unit due to be marketed for occupation by others. The community cash pod is essentially an ATM but has the ability to also receive cash deposits. Cash deposits are then recycled to use as cash from the ATM. The materials proposed are timber columns painted black with cedar batons around the ATM terminal, along with black composite cladding. The white advertising fascia appears to remain. The site is in the conservation area and is a locally listed building. I say consider no objections subject to the proposal materials being acceptable on this locally listed building in the conservation area. Listed to the neighbourhood plan 69, 85 and 87 of the district plan refers. Yeah, it's quite an interesting looking.
And I assume, so last month we had the one further up Station Road and that got a little archway next to it.
Yeah.
This looks like it's got an archway next to it, or is it a shadow? I can't quite
Yeah,
tell.
no, so there is I think if I go back to this picture
What- I
here,
wonder what
you
the
can
police have
see,
said.
so the archway
doorway.
actually is very, very similar. But I think the thing with this is that it is set further along.
Yeah,
And I think it's because of it's a cash point on already on a bank. It's just they're relocating it. I think there's probably less concern. CCTV.
because they were worried about the alleyway with the police and they were worried about the lack of depth in the
In the
On the
pavement,
pavement.
yeah, so I think there's you can see
Is it
here. from the
wider at the
picture, it's
bottom end?
Wider,
Yeah.
it's wider there, it's in a, yeah, I think it's. in a-
Also, we couldn't change that doorway anyway, because I'm assuming that's a conservation area.
Well, the doorway goes to the flat above, got nothing to do with HSBC themselves. It's actually to the units above.
But the other one was the same, wasn't it? It was just they were worried about people hiding in there and then leaping out.
It'd be nice if like you had some opening doors, where you swipe the card, the door opens and you're able to go into,
The vestibule.
yeah. And you get that in lots of places and it would just make people feel a bit safer.
Safer,
I mean, I
yeah.
wouldn't fancy going up and standing on the street and just taking a bunch of twinkles.
No.
Not that I ever have twinkles, but I do the kids have got them. But I think that would be a nicer idea just to be safer.
So if they're using that property, they're not using much space of it, are they?
So I think that because of the system that runs this thing is quite sizable, the
Right.
space that they've got inside there, but the majority of it, I mean, I have got the drawings, the majority of it is taken up with this machine, basically. There we go. So
It
actually,
might just be that you just plonk your cash in and it sorts it all out.
it does, yeah, so it's kind of
Yeah.
like a,
So you don't actually have to worry about,
Yeah. But I mean,
you put on a ward of cash and then you put, and then it, because I think I've had.
probably very similar to what used to be in Barclays, where
Yeah.
it's like you kind of, it would open up a mouth almost,
Yes.
you put
And
your
you-
cash in and then the mouth would close, yeah.
I just wonder why the police haven't commented on it. Are they just, I mean, they're fine.
Yeah, there was no comments today. I checked for all applications and there was no comments for HSBC.
I can't see a difference between that one and the one further up the road. I mean, because again, it's by Severn Crossing, so that was by, other one was by,
Yeah.
Severn Crossing. The Savills, it's got a doorway directly.
There's two doorways next to it, yeah.
So
It's just the pavement depth, which is a little bit different, but I agree. I'm surprised they haven't. So I'm just wondering whether we say subject to constable.
Subject to the police, yeah.
So they might have slipped past.
You're also-
It might be that it's not actually there.
And that's what it was further up
Yeah.
as well.
So if you've got a queue next to the crossing,
Yeah,
it's,
it's clumsy.
yeah.
However, I do think we need that service.
Yes,
Yeah,
you
you
do,
can
you
caveat,
really do.
you know.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the reasons I know my shop isn't cash, because there's nowhere to put it.
Do you have a plan? Can we see the plan?
Yes,
Do we have
and that's just further images of the existing, actually, I think that one doesn't mean.
It pretty much does, isn't it?
Go on. You're outside. No, on the banking document.
Oh, I'm not.
It is.
I am.
How are you? Yeah. So were you aware of this?
To be fair, it was on my third list, so I only knew about it on Friday last week, and I did tell Carl that, because I, until the list come in, I don't always know what's necessarily there, I thought, oh, I better tell Carl. So I did mention to Carl, but I don't think this will have any bearing on.
No,
payments.
no, but it's a sort of interesting thing.
It is,
With
yeah.
the Barclays face to face, in the list, and this means, you know, sort of like.
Getting rid of cash in hub in Sainsbury's, it's used to handling large volumes of cash, they've got the space. I know they're a bank themselves, but they'd be daft not to, the amount of extra footfall they'd get.
Yeah. It's potentially, the location again isn't perfect here.
So are we happy to accept subject to the police approval?
Yes.
Approval.
Yeah.
And if police say no, then are we saying we go with whatever the police say?
I think so.
I'm waiting for that go again.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we will.
Yeah.
So give them my address.
Can I also to that side, just so it's a little bit further away from the crossing, because it's very close to the door.
Then you're into the alcove, that was the problem.
Yeah.
They're worried about
Because you're
people,
too close to that,
yeah.
Yes. So are we happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think subject to police.
Yeah. What are they gonna do with that? What will end up with that building? Coffee shop then?
We don't have enough.
Starbucks?
I don't.
They're not a Starbucks, I'm yeah, Starbucks, so if you want
So
one.
what we've got, Honey and Nero, we've got 2 Costas, I say we've got that.
They did look at, the restaurant site earlier. One opposite, yeah.
Very good place.
Not the burger place, the one that used to be the,
Emmencote.
Oh, yeah, that was, a pub.
no, Atesh or something, isn't it? Oh, it was Coke.
Not.
Oh, the old post office.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's a restaurant, something on Facebook still, yeah.
It's quite big, isn't it, that one?
I think that's that Turkish restaurant.
No, it's there.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah, belly dancers if you go first.
Well, it's just for clientele as well. Okay, so just for noting the tree works. And weekly lists of decisions for St Albans. Didn't have any appeals.
No, it's time. No.
Okay. Application. Right. so that we've finished. This next meeting is the 10th of October.
I know. Where's the year going?
I'm approaching May, everybody.
You're approaching me,
I'm
yeah.
approaching May. I'm really surprised.
So you
it's
haven't been
October.
elected yet then, have you?
Not sure I'm in. Great.
Okay, meeting closed at 8:42.
I'll give you those.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Who's back here tomorrow night?
Me.
Me.
Just